Hey, everybody, welcome back to the next episode. Today, we have two special guests, husband and wife team, Chef T and Nasya, who own Soulful Vegan Cuisine Restaurant and Catering. Welcome, you guys.
Welcome.
Thank you. So a little bit about both of them. Chef T, vegan for 40 years. He set out to create and prepare vegan food by using recipes reminiscent of his African heritage and recreating them with plant-based heritage, which is very cool. Nasya, growing up in a large family in Chicago, recalls spending countless hours spectating as her grandmother baked. I have memories of that actually too, of my grandmother. She takes pride in creating vegan desserts that leaves people in disbelief of ingredients. As a pastry chef and a longtime vegan, she creates timeless desserts with a vegan spin. Awesome, you guys, and welcome. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you guys today.
Glad to be here.
Great. So tell us a little bit about you guys. How did you kind of move into the vegan kind of space, and then why did you decide to build a vegan restaurant and catering?
Well, I think as you mentioned, I've been a vegan for 40 years, so I've been interested in some of the communities I've lived in didn't have a lot of healthy eating options, and so I kind of took my hobby and turned it into a business, and I wanted to provide a service that could bring healthy eating options to our community. When Chef Nasya and I met 17 years ago, she was someone that was interested in pastry and baking. I don't want to tell you a story, but we started a vegan catering company.
Okay.
Working from a shared kitchen and doing demos on street corners and community gardens and all that kind of stuff, helping to sponsor community gardens. And I think the progression was that we wanted to have a restaurant that could serve the community and bring more awareness and be able to engage the community around issues of healthy eating. So that's how I got started. She can tell you her journey from being transitioning to learning pastry and baking.
Please.
So I do all the savory stuff. She does all the baking and pastry.
Okay.
Stuff. Yeah.
That makes a good team.
Yes, it does. For me, I never envisioned becoming a pastry chef at all. Becoming vegan, it was straddling the fence for me because me not knowing a vegan personally, it was kind of difficult. So when I met Chef T, it was a no-brainer. And again, never thinking that I would ever be in the industry of baking anything.
Right.
It's been quite the journey, and I enjoy what I do. And
well, how did you make that transition?
Funny story, how I made that transition. I wanted a KitchenAid mixer. And the only way that I could get the mixer is if I can prove that I could bake.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I had never baked anything vegan in my life. And so I created this cookie. And it was pretty amazing. And that's how I got started.
I bought her a KitchenAid mixer.
Right.
She was off and running.
That's a great story. So she jumped in, made a great cookie, proved herself, and that was history.
Yeah, but she didn't sell it, right? She was working a 9 to 5 at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And with little convincing, I said, look, quit your job, do what you love to do.
Right.
And she quit her job and she went to pastry and baking school and was outstanding as a student and outstanding as a I've been at this for 40 years. She makes the best vegan desserts I've had, and I don't say it just to patronize her, but she really is that good.
Oh, that's amazing. This is a true, there's so many inspiring lessons inside your guys' story. Going out and saying, hey, quit your job and let's go after our passion, our dream, and let's do what we need to do, you know? So it's just a very inspiring story. And then you had started grassroots, you're out in the streets hustling, you know, and making it happen, right? You know, and stuff. So, I mean, truly, you know, a lot of what you call the American dream or Canada, the Canadian dream, right? Of entrepreneurship. So, you know, what are been some of the biggest challenges do you guys think from going from, you know, kind of your hustling days and on the street and stuff to trying to move into the next kind of, you know, era of everything?
I think some of the challenges early on were just
Getting the funding.
getting the funding was definitely a hard part. You know?
Right.
Once we settled on the building that we wanted, our intent really was just to take and do it had been a restaurant. It had been a fast food restaurant prior to it over. So we really just we really thought that the infrastructure that was there would be sufficient enough for us to just make some cosmetic changes and, you know.
Right.
But once we started kind of peeling back the layers, you know, I think the first thing was I just randomly poked one of the drop ceiling tiles, and when I broke it, fortunately she was not there. A mouse came out. A mouse fell down with the tile, and it was a live mouse. And so if she had saw that, it would have been deal over with.
Yeah.
She never would have signed on for that. So
totally.
So what we thought was going to be cosmetic work became a full gut rehab. So probably that we thought was going to be $20,000 ended up being $120,000. So so we needed more money, and you know, so we were able to get some, but it wasn't enough. So we put a lot of sweat equity into the build out, and I drove Uber for 2 years trying to get the additional money we needed, and
love the story.
We really just we hustled like nobody's business to make it work. And so I think that was one of the biggest challenges. And I think, you know, in our community, it's not, there's only one other sit down restaurant, and predominantly African-American community, and folks aren't used to eating vegan. So you're going through all this stuff. It's like, well, what if you start thinking, you know, what if folks don't like what you do? And what if there's no response? And
right.
But it was the opposite. The response was overwhelming. I mean, we did twice the amount of business we projected and from this little tiny spot. And
amazing.
So it was, you know, the risk was high, but the reward was even greater. So
amazing. That's a good story. So did you actually tell her about the mouse, or did you just like leave that and then tell her like a long time later?
I eventually told her like after we signed the lease, and after it was months later, and I finally didn't tell her the story.
That's funny.
I told her, look, I'll do the demo. Don't you worry about it.
You knew your timing when the right time was to say, okay, now I can tell.
There was no turning back after that.
yeah, right, no doubt. Awesome. Well, that's again, another inspiring story, and I think so many people listening can take away from that, and understanding that a lot of times when we're all building business, there's lots of times when we've got to hustle and do other things like drive Uber, do this or do that, and while you're trying to make it happen. And I think that's where people quit a lot of times in entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So you figured out how you guys had to make it happen at the same time. So when you seen, you're like, whoa, this is going to cost a lot more money, did that set you guys back? As in, did you guys have the place and then you didn't launch for like maybe another 9 months or a year or something? Or how did that kind of happen? Or were you able to stay on schedule?
Well, the permitting process here in Chicago can sometimes take a while.
Right.
So by the time we did the architectural drawings and they got submitted to the city, and it was taking a long time. It took us a little over 9 months to get the permit by the time we had to make some revisions and all that stuff. So in that 9-month period of time, I really just spent a lot of time doing the demo and doing and doing the build up that I could, so there were certain things that we ended up making from by hand. But when we took the ceiling down, what we discovered was that there was a tin ceiling underneath it that was in really rough shape.
Right.
So what we did was we took that down and meticulously refinished the tin that we could salvage, and then put that back in a way that was very artistic. We made our own tables
From reclaimed wood.
We
Oh,
made
cool.
bathroom floor. We made, once we discovered one of the walls had exposed brick. So my father was a bricklayer, so I was able to use these tools and refinish the brick. And so we just took our time doing stuff like that and saved a lot of money in the process and along the way to make the restaurant what it is now. So
That's amazing. That's great. So you guys both of you guys good with your hands then? You were able to help build it out and paint and do all the stuff, ceilings, and you used a lot of. Right.
One thing we didn't do was like the plumbing and the electrical and stuff. A lot of those we did ourselves. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be honest, it's a skill that I don't have. And when we built one of our first gyms, I used to own chains of gyms, and my mom was my partner in the one, and we were startup and we were doing all ourselves, and thank God for her, because she's good at like with hammering and painting and all this stuff. I'm not skilled with that at all. I tried to hang a freaking shelf and it was crooked. A shelf, right? A shelf. I couldn't even do it. I couldn't even do a shelf properly, right? So they were like, okay, you're good at marketing. You're good at bringing the people. Just stick to what you're good at. It's going to take us way longer if you try and help us renovate this place, right? Which is true. So yeah, I look back to those days. Those were some fun days. So cool, awesome. So now tell us a little bit about. I got a great question that everyone's going to know. How is it working together, running the business as a husband and wife team?
It can be a little
contentious
at times, but what happens in the kitchen stays in the kitchen. So we try to keep our kitchen issues in the kitchen and don't bring it home.
Right.
I think part of what helped us was the fact that we started off working from a shared kitchen, and we had done some projects that were kind of intense. We did a school lunch program for one of the local schools. We provided the lunches for them for a school year. And I think that pressure of, getting in and getting product out and getting on time it's intense, because you can't be late for school lunches. Like you serve lunches at 11 o'clock and like that's hard and fast. So
yeah, and not only that, it's we had to really come together and work as partners instead of a couple. And so we had to learn that along the way, that we have to leave our personal life basically out of the kitchen. And so that helped us out a lot. So I call him Chef T and I'm Chef Nasya in the kitchen. So that really helped us out along the way.
There's no honey baby in the kitchen. It is yes chef, no chef. And so and then if there's anything that needs to be dealt with at home, you deal with that at home. Mm-hmm. And so so we learned that, and then because otherwise it gets you can't blur those lines.
It was a hard pill to swallow, but it had to be swallowed in order for us to succeed in that. So
that's such a good learning lesson, and even just how you guys structure the language patterns, right? Chef this, chef that, like making sure. I'm sure it took you guys a little bit of a learning process to get to that stage, right? I'm sure there was a lot of the personal in the business at the start, I would think. Am I correct on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then I think you would probably step back and said, hey, we need to figure this out very fast.
Otherwise it'll bring a marriage to its knees.
Because you take your personal issues into the kitchen because that's what you're used to. You're not used to working on a professional level. So we had to learn that. And it was quite the challenge, but we were able to overcome that.
So did you guys like actually sit down and almost like create a plan, like have a communication with each other and been like, okay, like we really have to leave personal here business
Yeah.
here? Did you guys like have that deep conversation?
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Where I think that's such a great learning lesson because, I was in business with my mom and stuff like that. And, it's great, but we're working with spouses or family or stuff. It can be a real big challenge at the
Oh, yeah.
start until you start to understand how to do it properly together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, because that you can't sever that relationship, so you have to work through it. Yeah.
It's true, right? Yeah, there's no finding a different business partner, right?
Right. Right.
So that's great. So would you think what's one of the biggest maybe tips that you guys could give people working together as a couple?
I think for us, I think one of the things is compartmentalizing. Making sure that you keep work at work, and when you're at home to deal with whatever challenges are at home, deal with those at home, and try not to let those filter into the two. I mean, because you could have a disagreement at home, but that can't filter in at work, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
And vice versa.
I think one of the things is remembering the goal. Like our goal was to serve the community, and so I think that goal, really being aware and being focused on that goal in and of itself,
Mhm.
not only did it help us to keep on track in terms of our own personal desires, but it also helps to it helps to strengthen us overall. Like you remember, like it's not about me. Like we're here together because we have a mission and a purpose, and we're focused on that in a way that it actually helps to strengthen our relationship. Whenever there is a conflict or whenever there's an issue, we remember what our goals are
Mhm.
and what our purpose is, not just as a couple, but as a business. And
Right.
so you stay focused on that.
That's
So
amazing.
that helps us to navigate, personal challenges in a way that I think that actually helped us to strengthen our relationship overall.
Yes.
I love that. I mean, I such believe in that. And we have a people before profit business model that I've always built out in lots of our businesses. And a lot starts with that purpose and having that deep purpose tied to the business. And, that just helps with, like you just said, relationships and just driving things and just everything. Just, to me, that is business, it really is. What is your guys' purpose?
Our purpose is to build and nurture community through innovative plant-based cuisine. And so the business is part of it, but our overall goal is to build community. We live in a community that is sometimes challenged to have the goods and services that will make a strong and healthy community. So Majani is to set the example of how a business can operate, why you should operate a business in this community, how you can serve the community, how you can employ people, and how you can inspire others to do what we do. So
Right.
that's the goal, is ultimately to build a strong and healthy community. For when we opened up the restaurant, we were technically in a food desert. Like we didn't have a grocery store, so you had to be very careful. Like if you ran out of garlic, you had to run 5 miles away to go to the grocery store or a supplier and get products. So we've since have acquired a grocery store, and there's other businesses that are coming online. But we live in the South Shore community, south side of Chicago. It's a beautiful neighborhood. We're right at the lakefront. There's lots of bike trails and stuff like that right there. But there's still some things that we would like to see in our community in order for it to really truly flourish. And so, so our mission is to build our community ultimately, and to showcase that eating healthy can be nutritious and delicious at the same time.
Right. I love it. How did you guys manage through the COVID days? Was it one of the toughest challenges you went through in business and starting, or did you guys make it through it pretty easy?
It wasn't easy, but we were able to make it through. Surprisingly, business seemed as if it picked up during COVID.
Interesting.
So yeah.
From a financial standpoint, the first 2 weeks we were kind of like, wait, what just happened?
Right.
And can we survive?
this.
But it went from that to kind of this rally. Someone in the community, one of the local businesses said, here's $5,000, feed the frontline workers. And then that just kind of started the momentum. Our primary lender stepped up and said, here's $10,000 to add to that. And so we kind of shifted into, we had, some catering orders that we did that helped fill in the gaps to feed the frontline workers. And so that was very helpful. And I think part of it was the community rallied around us in a way that I'll never forget, because they're like, we will not let you guys close. And so people came. I mean, what was interesting, I think for us personally, because we didn't have as many staff, we had to let some staff go.
Right.
We worked hard we worked harder that year than we've ever worked, because we didn't have as many staff.
Right.
For one reason or another, just because we couldn't have certain people, because we had to operate with a skeleton group.
Yeah.
But financially, we probably made more in 2020 than we did in 2019.
Wow, interesting.
So the business was there. It was just a lot harder on us. We went back to working those 12-hour days again that we had worked, that we had gotten away from. But so physically it was hard on us, but financially we did okay.
Right. Did you guys come out financially okay? Because were people doing takeout, or did the catering side of your business help you more? Or was
strictly takeout? Catering died. We didn't do any catering orders outside of the frontline workers. And we just pivoted. So we were already, probably half our business was takeout.
Okay.
So it all went to 100% takeout. And,
right. Interesting. So did you guys actually sit down and have that conversation and actually strategize and be like, we really got to pivot and hit the takeout harder? Or?
Well, I think we were at a point where we had just signed up to take, it was called Chicago Food Lab. They had done a food lab in Detroit just for local businesses to have best practices. And so we had just signed up for this course. This was through our local chamber of commerce. They had encouraged us to take this course. So the course kind of shifted to walk through what are some of the best practices that we need to engage in to get through the pandemic. So we modified our takeout. We went from single-use plastics to eliminating plastic almost altogether. And we updated our website to make it more user-friendly. And those are some of the things that we did to kind of help us to shift through that, and having that guidance from the South Shore Chamber program was helpful as well. So these are all the things that helped us to kind of sort of. I think the business model now, I think it's more efficient than it was trying to do half takeout and half dine-in. I mean, now that we allow customers to sit down, but they just sit down with takeout. So.
Oh, really interesting. So the consumer,
we never went back. We still have not gone back to full service yet.
Oh, you haven't, hey? So interesting. So do you think the consumer, his mindset kind of shifted a little bit too, where they're like rather come in and just wait and then take it, or how do you think that?
One of the things that we also did was we updated our POS system, and it's just it's just so much more efficient. So it allows for us to get orders out on average of less than 10 minutes. So even when it used to be let's just say if we did $2,000 or $3,000 a day, it would seem harder to do that because of is it takeout, is it dine-in, plating, versus now that it's singular and focused, everything's takeout. And with the updated POS system, everything just moves a lot more smoothly, and so it's less effort to make the same amount of revenue. And so those are some of the things that we thought that were big improvements. So we improved a lot of systems to make things run better. Yeah. So
that's interesting. It is. Sounds like the customer experience is stronger now too.
But the customers, the customer experience is still, the atmosphere is still there, still the same. The customer experience is it may be diminished a little bit because they're not getting plates and forks and all that stuff. But I think because we have better service, I think it's the trade-off.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
just a trade-off, and I think people are fine with it. People still will sit down and enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I agree with you because I look at both two ways of customer experience when I order from the vegan restaurants. One is if I'm ordering takeout, how fast do they communicate with me? How fast is my order done? How good is it? And if they're on point on that, I'm like, these guys are running a good business, right? I'm like, that experience was very good for me. The whole process was super good for me, right? Where other ones I, bought from, and it's just clunky all the way through by the time I get my food, right?
Yeah. The food better be really good because that point is not
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think these are all the things that we talked about in the transition is the customer experience. It starts with now it starts with your website.
Yeah.
So having a good website so that experience translates all the way through from the time they consume their food. Is it a good experience even on the website and ordering process and all that stuff? So.
Yeah, I'm so with you on that. In our company, we sit down every week and we just have a meeting and look at every touch point inside our ecosystem, every touch point consistently, and make sure every touch point is, as best we can get it, as best we can get it, as best we can get it, as best from customer 10 orders in, or someone that just even touched our social media first, or somebody that, the consistent experience, and I think that I'm glad you brought that up because I think small businesses, I see a lot that I do go into, they lack that. They lack at sitting down and not understanding how critical every touch point is along the way, right? Like even a touch point, even with me and you guys, a touch point is whoever, Darren, I think it was, talked with you guys. We're on here now. How is the touch point even started with you guys for us, right? That's a touch point of our business.
Yeah.
So, it's not always the easiest thing to do. And it's something that you always keep working on to make better and better and better.
Yeah. Yeah. Our goal, May 25th will be 5 years for us.
Congratulations.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
And so, it was 5 years, when we were talking about going into business together for the restaurant. I was like, it's not like catering. You can accept or not accept an order. You can go on vacation whenever you're ready, but the restaurant's not like that.
Yeah.
And so we said we would reassess things at the end of 5 years and say,
Right.
do we want to continue, or are we ready to expand or grow?
Yeah.
And so I think this is the year where we want to finish putting the things in place to be ready to franchise.
Oh,
Because we
interesting.
certainly see growth opportunity, but I don't want to do. I think we have agreed that we don't want to do corporate expansion.
Yeah.
That we want any expansion to come through the franchise model. And,
Right.
those are things that we're trying to put in place.
Well, that's cool. I come from that industry, the franchising industry. So I was the first one there was a gym called Curves for Women. And so I was the first one to bring those to Canada.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that franchise, I became really close with the founders because I was in so at the start and brought it into Canada and stuff. So that's how I really learned to build business. I came out of college, I started building businesses, but that's where I really learned systems and processes and how to develop leaders and create leaders and just the whole top to bottom of building. And then I would go in and help open some of the franchises and help different owners scale more, because some of the owners, we had the same location, some of them, but let's say, my one location's, doing $1 million, and this other location over here is only doing 100,000, but we have the same territory and same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when I really looked at that, it was, and the same systems, right? But it was going in, and when I looked at it, the owners wouldn't be executing the systems properly. They wouldn't maybe understand it enough, how they were kind of maneuvering and stuff like that. So you really have to look at their business, because there was no reason why they shouldn't have been doing at least half the number, that we were doing if the territory was very similar, right?
Right.
So Yeah, so I learned a heck of a lot. I was so blessed to be in that franchise, because that franchise went to a $4 billion franchise in 10 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, it took McDonald's and Subway 25 years to hit those numbers.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was one of those little franchises that you look at and no one would ever know. You know, it was one of those things where you just
Right.
seen it and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, curves, I've seen that. You know, it was around, but no one really understood, you know, the numbers that was really happening in that franchise.
Right.
What happened with curves?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I sold my last one. We had about a 13, 14 run, sold my last one to my manager. And I could see that it was just starting to plateau off. And the owners at that point were not making enough changes as the market was changing. And so I kind of knew, I'm like, if they don't pull the trigger and start to make the changes that we need, this is going to die off. Like, this is going to die off. I could see it. So we were very careful of, you know, watching and stuff like that. That's kind of that. There's a challenge I had with people in business with me, including my mom, because no one wanted to sell anything because everyone was attached to it. And I was like, no, we need to go. Like, this is the time, right? So, yeah. Well, there was a few discussions, I'll tell you that, around that
Yeah.
for a long
Yeah.
time. But yeah, you know, they could have had the market, and then there was a lot of things too that were happening. You know, when we got in, there wasn't as many smaller chains. There wasn't a ton of, like, you know, now if you look at, like, for example, Orange Theory Fitnesses and stuff like that, there wasn't as many smaller chains around. Yoga wasn't around as much. There wasn't just as much,
Gotcha.
and you know, bigger scale gyms, that, you know, so the competition was a lot less then, so it was easier to penetrate the market. But they could have had it. You could have kept it, because if you look at, like, Orange Theory Fitness and different ones that have come along, I mean, they've scaled big franchise models again. You know, they actually tried to get me to buy the franchises and scale them through Orange Theory Fitness through Canada. But one of our Vancouver Canucks, who was a friend of mine, actually ended up buying it. So yeah, so it was just the timing and everything, and like I said, the ownership of pivoting, and that's where they lacked, which was kind of sad, because they could have kept that market, and then they ended up selling out to a bigger chain, and then I knew I was already done and out, but I knew that was going to be the final straw, because that bigger chain was going to flip it into something else, and more wanted probably the database of the people at that time, right? So, but it was a good run. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of people in that franchise made stupid amounts of money, like crazy amounts of money. It was one of those things where the first 5 years, even if you were shitty at business, you still were making money, right? So yeah. So but yeah, so I'm glad you guys are going that route. You know, any advice you want or anything, feel free to reach out to me, and I can try.
I absolutely will.
Yeah, help you. I love that.
No, I absolutely will.
And I always want to see plant-based stuff succeed big time, right? I mean, that's like, I'm like there, right? Let's get those businesses succeeding, because they're making a difference in the world. So you guys, what do you think? Just in general, like with the whole, let's talk about just the vegan space for a minute. How do you guys feel it's really evolving? Do you guys feel it's yeah, let's say the food industry and the vegan space, do you like where it's going nowadays?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think that as you stated, you know, kind of veganism was a steady, you know, 5-6% increase over year, and we've seen it spike. You know, we've seen, you know, kind of the curve where still at the bottom of the curve, where we see there's a lot of growth potential, where we're seeing, you know, it's still kind of odd to me to go to a mainstream excuse me, grocery store and see, like, labeled, you know, a vegan section, you know, or this is vegan. And but I think there's still a long ways to go in terms of the growth potential for veganism. And so how do we, how do we capture that market? How do we continue to grow our brand? But I think that when you see, KFC, for example, or McDonald's and all these big franchises get into the game, there's still a long ways to go.
Yeah.
And some products, I'm not a big fan of some of the processed stuff.
Yeah.
Is it good for me as a vegan? Not necessarily, but is it good for veganism? Yes, because if it gets folks going in that direction, then that's a step forward.
Right.
For the movement. So
right. Yeah, I agree with that with you, and I'm on the same page with you as that, because I think like I look at it like, I know if I'm going to go out and I'm going to a restaurant that night and I see the Beyond the Meat burger on the thing. I know it doesn't have the exact most healthiest things maybe in it for me, but that's kind of like my treat day. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing. It would be like if I wasn't vegan and I'm going to have this, it's like my kind of, it's like my treat day. So I look at them almost like two separate things for me. You got over here where I'm primarily eating healthy most of the time. And then here's, I got my more kind of a bit of a cheat day, over on that side.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm gonna switch sides.
No problem. Good.
Yeah. So yeah, I think one of the things that I'd like to see more is maybe we were in New York doing a film segment, and I wanted to get to a bunch of different restaurants while we were there. And New York is so spread out, and we were only there for the weekend. We only had a chance to go to 2 or 3. So it kind of inspired me to want to create in Chicago like a vegan village, one that is a collection of really well-run restaurants. And so I like to see more of that intentional community around veganism that can really help to inspire communities in a way that is kind of hard to as a one-off.
Yeah. I'm with you on that too. I think there's just a lot working in a silo still. It's slowly starting to come together, but I think it's got to come to more together as a whole, like you're talking.
Yeah. As a collective effort, I think you can have more of an impact than kind of being separate and different as an individual. So that's what we're working towards. That's our next goal, apart from franchising, is to create that community.
That's great. I've learned a lot, interviewing different vegan businesses and just from, the girl that's making the shoes or how they're using applesauce with belts and stuff like that. So it's been actually really cool when I started doing
that's making applesauce with belts.
Yeah, like they're using a type of applesauce that is like a form of they've made it into like a form of leather type stuff, right? So I got to do more research into it, but yeah, I'm finding out all these things. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, right? So, I mean, I got to admit that was my hardest thing, and I still haven't got there yet. Because of the compassion movement that we have, I'm always asked on everything. If somebody sees me wearing something, right, I'm always criticized, right? Because I can never win, right, on it, right? So they ask me, are those shoes got leather on it? Does this shirt have bamboo or not on it? Does this it just doesn't stop, right, for me? And we kind of laughed because you thought when we started doing compassion, my whole team was like, yeah, you think when you're just doing good, you wouldn't get criticized so much, right? But I mean, that's life, that's social media, that's people, it's gonna come, I was talking to the girl the other day, she does a shoe line. And I said to her, I like shoes. I'm a shoe guy. But I told her, I said, I still cannot find any cool vegan shoes. I still cannot find any be cool shoes. You know what I mean? So I said, hey, she's like, I'm actually thinking about creating a men's shoe line. I'm like, hey, I'm into partnering on that.
That's interesting. So you're you're not necessarily opposed to wearing a leather belt or leather shoes or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to now as much. That was my last kind of step that I started to go into next. Because for me, the first part was health, right? So that years ago, I, come from the fitness industry, reading, teaching health, and like I had lots of courses and stuff around it. And I was really around alkalinity and acidic, and I started to learn, and so then I transitioned. Then as I moved more into the compassion brand, then it became like animals, right? Compassion for animals, because obviously there's a huge community that's, compassion for animals. Some of my closest friends, right? It wasn't about health, but they first went in for animals, right? And so that came, and then then it moved to like the sustainable clothing and all that. Then that community, started to come in, which then that was kind of my last step, trying to go more towards that. I was like, geez, I gotta, for me, I was like, well, I got a $10,000 wardrobe of everything else. And I'm like, right? I'm like, I mean, I'm gonna have to start buying everything, new and stuff, right? So I think I'm gonna have to figure out how to get sponsored by some of these companies so I can get some clothes, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of the people that I interview, it's interesting because when I talk to a lot of them, they're doing this more and not this one quite as much.
Yeah.
Or they're here more or not quite as much on this one, but doing more. So it's been a very interesting conversation on that side.
Yeah, I think we're the same. I haven't got to a point where I don't wear everything that I wear. I mean, when I first started, I was still using honey in our ingredients, and then switched to agave, and then ultimately just started using raw sugar.
Right.
But I haven't gotten to a point yet where I don't wear leather shoes or leather belt. In this industry, you have to have shoes that are going to protect you, and so I'm certainly minimal when it comes to this, but it's not like I don't or we don't wear anything that doesn't have any animals. So
And
that as well.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't find a lot of stuff that I like to wear. Right? Like I've always been a stylish guy. I like to wear stylish stuff. So I think that's going to come a long way in the next 5 years, so, right.
I agree. Yeah.
So, but awesome. So, I mean, this has been a super good interview. I love your guys' story. I love what you guys are doing. I love, your growth and doing it as a couple, and, just everything, right? I think it's just an inspiring story. You guys have made it. Restaurants is not the easiest business to be in, that's for sure, right? It's a tougher business, and so you guys have been able to, carve out your niche and do it and work together and still stay happily married. Right?
Dude, listen. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny because Vancouver has not necessarily been on my list of places to go see, but I think it is now. Like I want to come to Vancouver. I want to come check out the vegan scene. And
you're invited.
Yeah, last weekend we had a getaway. We were in San Diego for the weekend to check out the vegan scene there. But let's go to Vancouver, babe.
Yeah, 100%. You guys will love it here too. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful city.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do, and stuff. I'll give you a stat of how beautiful it is. We're the second most expensive city to live in, one down from Hong Kong.
Yeah, that much I know, that Vancouver is not necessarily a cheap place to live, but I mean, if you want a city to set a high standard, that's part of what you have to do. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I look forward to you guys coming here and showing you guys around and getting to know you and stuff. And maybe one day I'll make it to Chicago, because I haven't been to that city yet. And for me, it's a city that I do want to get to. Coming from Canada, we know all about the Chicago Blackhawks, because if you're from Canada, you probably played hockey as a guy, right?
Yes.
So
All right.
awesome. And so where can they all find you guys at? Website, social media, anything like that?
Our web our website, excuse me. Yeah. Our website is majani.biz, majani.biz. We're on Facebook, Instagram. They just search Majani, they'll find us. And if they're in Chicago, they can come to our restaurant, 7167 South Exchange Avenue in Chicago.
Awesome. Make sure you guys, if you're in Chicago, go check it out. Actually, I wanted to start doing, I'm going to do, you know, like Barstool, Dave Portnoy, he does, you know, Dave Portnoy, he's a Barstool guy. He does all these, I want to go around and start doing like reviews on vegan food. So I'm going to go start doing, I'm going to start going around and doing like a review on vegan food.
Yeah, I think that's our second life as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're actually working on, so one of the trade-offs was before we opened up the restaurant was I was in the conversation I had with my wife, we can either buy a house or we can open up a restaurant. And so, so we both agreed to do the restaurant, but we're closing on a property in the next couple of weeks to for our first building together. It's a 3-unit, and we want to have 2 units as a vegan Airbnb in Chicago. So,
Oh, I like that.
so maybe by the time you're ready to come this way, you can
Yeah.
stay. It'll be a really nice vegan Airbnb with it'll be a green building. We'll be right behind the train track, so that allow you to the city train, which allow you to go. You can be downtown in like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So we're excited about that. That it all paid off in the end. So now we have the restaurant and the building. So we're excited.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I love the vegan spin on it. Like that's a cool spin.
Yeah.
I like that. Like that's
So it's a green building. We'll have like all electric. It'll be an all electric building, solar panels and all that kind of stuff. And then because there's really no place. You know, it's all about enhancing the vegan experience, right? Because there's not that many places where you can go and you know, spend the night and have a vegan breakfast in the morning. So we want to make sure we provide that.
It's true. I like that idea. That's interesting. Awesome.
We gotta talk, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I like the way you think, and I like, you know, I've enjoyed the conversation. I think that there's some opportunities for us to do some business together.
100%. I mean, I'm all about collaboration. I'm all about building relationships. I'm all about building people, you know, helping each other. I mean, that's life is short, you know, we all should work together and help each other as much as we can.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I look forward to getting to know you guys better. And thank you so much for doing this interview with me, by the way.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
It was our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay. All right. Take
Talk
care.
soon.